Hello, you beautiful people, and welcome to a very special episode of I Am the Hammer, the show in which I talk about all things Grey Knights. It is, of course, the World Team Championship in a couple of weeks, which is a really exciting time for us mere mortals as we get to find out what all the top players all around the world have been concocting in secret with their countries. Grey Knights are a very popular faction at this event, and so what I've done is I've deep dived the statistics to help us all understand what makes Grey Knights tick at the highest level. So let's crack on. So to begin with, I'm just going to talk about the WTC. I'm not going to go into too much detail. We've done a lot of stuff on that on our podcast and that sort of thing, but I'll just give you an overview. Then I'm going to talk about the armies. Okay, so I'm going to deep dive the statistics. I'm going to talk to you about the popular unit choices and all that sort of thing. I'm going to pinpoint some interesting list decisions because some armies have gone a bit left field. And then I've also got a few lists to talk through, just ones that really caught my eye that I think you might well be interested in trying out. So what is the WTC? Well, it is, of course, the World Team Championships. It happens every year. Countries from all around the world gather together, usually in something like Belgium, and duke it out to find out who is at the top for that particular year. Last year's winners were Poland, and the year before that was Australia. So yeah, it gets shared around. I'm not going to go into the kind of the deep details of how it operates, but essentially you take an 8-man team. Okay, so you've got 8 players in your team, and they all have to be using a different book. So what that avoids is, like last year's WTC, there would of course been 8 Eldar lists if that wasn't a rule. So it means that if the meta is healthy, then you get a wide variety of different armies being chosen. And that is absolutely the case this year with every army, apart from poor old Gene Stealer Cult, being taken. So the thing with teams, and the thing that makes it so interesting, is that there's a particular pairings process, which is like a mini game in itself, and you end up pairing up and playing into other armies. Therefore, what you're trying to do is have some armies that are very like skewed, and so they could, for example, take on vehicles. So you might take a couple of lists that are very good into vehicle armies, and then you might take some other lists which are just generally good into everything and just kind of just don't lose big. Okay. And then you're playing and you're trying to keep the scores as close as possible. That's kind of the general theme of it. What that means is that the lists, especially at the high level, aren't specifically or realistically translatable into singles. Singles, obviously, you need to try and be able to beat a whole wide range of things. Quite often in teams, your list is built to do a particular job, and it's therefore got some very bad matchups. So therefore, you wouldn't want to take it to a singles event. So for that, because of that, you know, we've got to think that we have to take these lists with a pinch of salt. Okay, so as I talk through these, I will try and highlight my thoughts on them, but just bear that in mind. Just don't think, oh, I can just find these WTC lists and just pick one randomly and I'll go win my event because it'll be the best list there. Obviously, there's a huge amount of variables there. Okay, but the important thing here to note is that these lists are going to be good. So what are the headlines? Now, I spent a few hours reading through every single list and writing it down. I had a little notepad and I wrote down every single list. And as you're reading, you kind of pick up some vibes. And then I actually did some actual statistics and counting. And so here are the headlines, the key points, if you will. 28 out of 40 teams are taking Grey Knights. I think that puts them in number 3. So every country is taking a Space Marine list of some sort, mostly Blood Angels, some Dark Angels, a few little bits of other things. Lots of people are taking Thousand Sons, might be Sisters as well. That is just ahead of Grey Knights. But yeah, 28 out of 40 for Grey Knights. That makes them very, very popular. So that means that we are thinking Grey Knights are in a healthy spot, a good spot, and lots of teams are thinking, yes, we want them. What is really, really interesting, I think, about Grey Knights here is that there has not been one clear direction people have ended up going with them. You do get this generally, you know, like especially at this level, a lot of the big players big names will arrive at a logical standpoint for the army and the best way of playing each of the different armies. This has not remotely happened with Grey Knights. So you've got 3 different SKUs and they're kind of split equally. So you've got the vehicle SKU. We saw this used to be 5 or 6 Dread Knights and then Land Raider Redeemers. No one's taking Land Raider Redeemers anymore, but you have got 8 lists with 5 or 6 Dread Knights in. Okay, so some countries are still believing that that is a good SKU for the Grey Knights to go down. All right. Then you've got 9 MSU style builds. Now, what I've counted as MSU is where it doesn't have a 10-man in it anywhere. A 10-man Terminator or Paladin brick. Okay, they're obviously a lot more mission scoring. And then we've got 11 lists which have got a 10-man Paladin or Terminator brick. Okay, which is the way I like to play. I've been playing with one 10-man Paladin brick, and it just gives you that threat. It gives something to deal with. The problem with the MSU is that, yes, it scores well, but its killing power isn't that great. But yeah, so you've got 3 clear archetypes there, and I'm going to show you an example of all of them, really. So this I found fascinating. I genuinely found this interesting. As I was reading through, I was like, everyone is taking Terminators. Terminators are so popular. They, in fact, are more popular than strikes. Okay, there are 47 Terminator units being taken as opposed to 41 strike units. Pretty much everyone does have strikes. I'll cover that on the next slide. But the fact that Terminators are so popular is very interesting. And I suspect links slightly to the fact that Drago is also very popular. So Drago is in 22 out of the 28 lists. I personally don't really like Drago. I mean, clearly I'm wrong, right? I know lots of people go, oh, it's just an auto take. I've actually got a small GT coming up next weekend, and I was just thinking I want to try something different because I don't really care how this event goes. So yeah, I might just give him another go at failing all those charges. But yeah, the Drago and Terminator combo is very, very popular. You see a lot of 2 or 3 lots of 5 Terminator bricks in these lists. And, you know, everyone's got strikes, or most people got strikes just because, you know, strikes are good. But yeah, I was surprised at the amount of lists out there which went for 2 or 3 Terminator units. I guess it's just at that high level, you can be very good at not giving away the whole unit, and then it gets to regrow, and that's obviously incredibly an important thing. You know, they're so much more popular than Paladins. It's not even close. But also, you know, OC 15 on a point is it's quite tasty, especially when it's with a Librarian. So those are the headlines. Let's dive a little deeper now. So, speaking of Librarians, 17 lists have Librarians in them. 16 have at least 2 or more. So now the 3-man or 3 Librarians in the list only happens 2 or 3 times. But yeah, 16 have, so I think it's like 14 have 2 in. That's over half the list are taking Librarians. We have to think about why, right? So my philosophy of Librarians as a singles player is, if they're not attached to a unit, they drop down, they do 4 mortal wounds, and they die. If they are, that's 120 points I could have spent on 5 strikes. You could be out of somewhere else on the board, scoring points, move blocking, killing something, whatever. I like to have more units. So my philosophy has been Librarians are rubbish, don't take Librarians. Obviously, again, they have a clear place. We have to think why. I think it's going to come down to the fact that by taking Librarians, it helps to cover you in the Thousand Suns matchup. Now, Thousand Suns are looking very strong at the moment at the highest level in teams. Thousand Suns are going to be an absolute bitch to play into. Not many people want to play into Thousand Suns. Thousand Suns are also very popular. Everyone knew Thousand Suns would be popular. So now Grey Knights don't do well into Thousand Suns, but having those Librarians with those Terminators to give you that 4-up Feel No Pain. Drago also gives it to you. 2 Librarians and Drago and 2 or 3 units of 5 Terminators is a very, very popular thing going across these lists. So yeah, I think it's more of a team tech than a singles tech, personally. But yeah, it's over half the lists are taking Librarians. They're very popular. So if you're playing at a teams event, definitely consider taking them. And hell, even a singles list, think about taking them, because as I said, they're everywhere. Let me know in the comments. Are you enjoying your Librarians? Because I've yet to try them properly. I played one game with them and I wasn't impressed. But hey, what do I know? Now, Nemesis Dread Knights. Obviously, they went up slightly. Still very, very popular. Only 3 lists have no Nemesis Dread Knights in out of the 28. And one of those has got a Grandmaster in Dread Knight armor. 3 is by far the most common number. So yeah, you've just got the Grandmaster Dread Knights aren't anywhere near as popular. Understandably, the normal one is better and cheaper because of the full back, advance, and charge. But yeah, not many lists are taking 2. I've been taking 2 because, again, I just like a bit more stuff. But yeah, 3 is a very popular number for Dread Knights. So based on this, if you're thinking of taking Dread Knights, 3 is a magic number. As I said earlier, there are only 3 lists with no strikes. I mean, I've always maintained this. You need to have strikes. I don't see how you're not taking strikes. Sticky objectives, scout move. They're just so handy. Like, just put strikes on your list if you're not already, guys. Now, 3 lists have gone down the Bro Champ route. Now, the Bro Champ is our form of fights first. Okay. And what they're doing is they're linking up the Bro Champ. I think 2 of the lists, anyway, are linking up the Bro Champ with 10 Strike Marines. And the idea being here that you park them somewhere, maybe on an objective, and you say, you've got to kill me, and you're not going to shoot me to death because I've got a 2-up save and I'm in cover, and you have to come and punch me. But before you do that, I've got like 35 attacks coming your way at strength 6 minus 2 damage. So yeah, I think it's an interesting idea. Again, it's leading into sort of leaning into that idea of that Grey Knights can kill things. Grey Knights still aren't great at killing things, and you've got no rerolls. You know, like you think, let's say it's the 30 attacks. Let's ignore the Bro Champs. 30 attacks, there's 20 hits, 14 wounds. Like, what's that? Like 8 or 9 dead Space Marines from that unit. Okay, cool. Yeah. As soon as they have Armor of Contempt, things start getting a bit harder. As soon as you're going into 2-up saves, things are rough, especially 2-up saves with Armor of Contempt. So yeah, it's a cool idea, but I think there's a reason why you're not seeing it like everywhere. 3 people have gone for Brother Captain Stern, including the Polish. And I think that's interesting because Polish are very good at list building, especially teams list building. And last year at WTC, Polish in their Eldar list, I think, were one of the very few armies to bring Fugen. Obviously, once Eldar hit that first round of nerf, everyone was then like, wow, this Fugen's amazing. And even I'd been like, oh, this Fugen's so good. But I just can't squeeze him into my list because I've got all the obviously broken stuff. So I think it's interesting that Poland have gone for Stern. I would definitely get Stern into my list if I could. I tried him a couple of times, and each time I probably played him a bit too defensively. And what you do find is you stick him out there and you're like, haha, he'll get up again. And then your opponent goes and draws Assassinate. And it's like, God damn it. And you don't really want to be picking him up quite often, apart from in the end game, because you want to pick up your damage dealing units. But yeah, three players have gone for Stern. So check him out if you haven't already. Basically, he's 90 points for a normal Terminator, but when he dies, he gets back up on the top. And then we've got 3 people going for Canis Rex. 2 of those are like the vehicle builds. One of those is just a general Grey Knights list plus Canis Rex. My issue with Canis Rex is that I think there are a lot of armies out there that can just take him down, and then trying to get value out of him when you've already struggling. You haven't got cheap units to throw away anyway, so every unit is valuable. I think can be tricky, but yeah, it's an interesting slant, isn't it? Really. So yeah, so that's the general kind of statistics there. If you do have specific questions in the comments, do leave them. And as I said, I've got all of the lists written out just on a notepad and pad of paper. So if you have any specific questions and you're curious, then just drop a comment and I'll just look it up and let you know what the data is. But yeah, so here are some things I picked out as oddities. Italy. Italy's list is weird. It is weird. I mean, it's the fact it's got a 10-man paladin. I like 10-man paladins. It's also got a 5-man paladin. I don't see much point in 5-man paladins personally. But this has a 10-man interceptor brick. What? Only country to take this 10-man interceptor brick. Cool. It moves 12 rather than 6. I don't really get why, personally. Hey, if you're listening and you play for Italy, then please let me know in the comments. Maybe everyone will come back and be like, "Oh, that was brutal. It's 260 points for that." I'm not scared as an opponent. No, it's not for me. So I think that's an interesting choice. Singapore and Thailand, that's one country. They're joined together. I've gone for 2 Razorbacks. The only people to take Razorbacks in the whole competition for Grey Knights. Cool. There was a thing quite a few years ago where Grey Knight Razorback spam was a thing apparently. But yeah, 2 Razorbacks. Interesting choice. They're basically 10 points more than a Rhino for the last cannon, I think, maybe. Now Luxembourg. Obviously, 6++ have been working with Luxembourg. We've scrimmed them once. We're about to scrim them a second time. Their Grey Knight player has gone for 2 squads of Purgation Marines. Now, Purgation Marines are, I think probably I'd say 5 or 6 countries have taken them. Luxembourg put side cannons on them. Everyone else has put incinerators, obviously. Side cannons. It's an interesting choice. Obviously, the idea is you drop them down and you get, my mind's gone blank, shooting down from up above, so you get the extra AP. You can do that on the WTC boards. But they're AP1, so your opponents, if you're shooting through a wall, you're getting cover, but you've got the plunging fire, that's the one. So it keeps it at AP1. My issue, I think it's 3 shots you're getting, so it's 12 shots, but you're hitting on 4s. That's my issue with them. And you haven't got any rerolls, so 6 hits. No. Okay. Yeah. I don't know. Personally, I think flames are better. And finally, this is the ultimate oddity. Obviously, Englishman here. I'm going to be rooting for Team England alongside Team Luxembourg. England have gone left field, which I love to see. And I really like this list. This is Chris Radford. Chris is a great player. He's gone for something very different to everyone else because he's got no Dread Knights. Dun, dun, dun. So I'm going to look through some lists now, and we'll start with Chris's. So here we go. He's got 2 Librarians, one of which has Sigil, of course. Notice, no Drago. Okay, boy, near to my heart, no Drago. He's clearly failed his 6-inch charges as much as I have. He then has Crow with 10 Purifiers. This is the only list in the entire competition that is taking purifiers with Crow. Only list. I think that's really interesting. I have obviously been playing purifiers in my lists. I really like them. England is the only country that have gone for it. That's probably a tech choice for maybe particular matchups. You know, it's a lot. Puts a lot of -1 ignoring cover there. And Chris is a very good player, so he'll be able to utilize it. He's then got 10 Terminators. That'll be one of the Librarians, the Librarian with Sigil, and that'll be a nuisance. Then got 2 units of 5 strikes. I personally believe that's the ideal number for strikes. He's then got a Rhino. And what the Rhino does is it adds 3 inches to that interceptor movement. So those interceptors now moving 15, or they're moving they can obviously advance 21. But like the big thing is, you know, moving that 15, and we can spend a CP to give them advance and shoot, and then fire and fade them. They can get really, really far for things like behind enemy lines, and you can just cycle the interceptors through the tank. Same with the Flamer Purgation Marines. Maybe they could hop in the Rhino and then hop out again. Both units are with Flamers. This list is really cool. It has a lot of stuff, right? Look at that, 7 units of stuff, and then 2 hard-hitting units. Oh, and it's got the Librarian. What does it lack? It lacks the Dread Knights. I've played only 1 game without Dread Knight. I find Dread Knights unbelievably meh. They're a solid 5 out of 10. They usually slightly underperform. Ever so often they overperform. The combat sucks. And you kind of, to get value out of them, you have to be spamming that +1 to hit for the turn. I can see why he's not taking them, especially in a teams event. In singles, I think like sometimes you just play into a match where you're like, oh, I'm really glad I've got these 12, 18 heavy side cannon shots. You're just glad for it. It's just really helpful. But in teams, they've clearly got very particular matchups they're looking to hit, and especially ones with lots of infantry. And yeah, I can see why they've not gone for Dread Knights. So yeah, I think if you're interested in trying out a list that's a bit different, and I would probably say this list is quite forgiving because it's got a bit more stuff than normal. I think this is a really cool list, and I'm going to be definitely following this, how this list plays and what it plays into very closely. So great job, Chris. Right. Now, I chose this list, and then about 2 days later, I was watching David Gaylard and Vic's Fireside podcast as they were talking through lists that are at the WTC, but you might well consider for a singles list. And when they talked about Grey Knights, Vic had highlighted France's list. So that gave me a bit of smug satisfaction because I was like, okay, cool, great. I also have managed to pick out this list as well. I think it's a list that can definitely play into singles quite nicely. I played against a very similar list like this, and I lost in the mirror. If you watch my last video, you'll know. The difference being that my last opponent had 3 units of 5 Terminators. Here we've got a 10 and a 5. My opponent had 3 Librarians, whereas this guy has 2 Librarians and Drago. Other than that, it's exactly the same. This list just does things well. It's stodgy. It's got lots of battle line. It's got lots of OC. It's got some killing power, especially with, you know, Sigil with 10 Terminators, Drago with the 5, Librarian on his own doing his thing, 3 units of 5 strikes, just scoring points, 3 Nemesis Dread Knights there to be hitting hard. It doesn't have any interceptors, which I just really like, but you can't get by without them. But yeah, if you're looking to go to a singles event next weekend and you have no idea what to play, if you take this list, I don't think you really go wrong. I think this is like the most balanced, neutral Grey Knight list out there right now. This one right here. This is probably, if someone said to me, I'm trying to build a Grey Knights list and I'm new to Grey Knights. What should I take? I would say take this, I think, realistically. It's got a bit of everything in there. But it's also got a bit of oomph in the form of the big Terminator brick. Yeah, a really cool list. I suspect this guy's probably just going to have to deal with all the shit all weekend. I think he's going to be like, all right, because this doesn't score big really. Yes, they have lots of OC, so they could try and create a big primary differential. They don't have enough stuff really. Most armies that will probably be able to just kill them quickly enough that you can't build big differentials with this list. So he'll be bust and be taking on all the stuff that no one wants to play, and he'll still be scoring somewhere between 8 and 12 points. I doubt this list will lose big at all unless he gets completely outplayed or makes a big mistake in the game. So yeah, very nice standard list here. And then at the other end, we have got Poland. Now there were, I can't remember. Let's say 8 vehicle lists. I picked Poland's version because I think it's kind of the most generic one. And on top of that, Poland won last year, and they're good at list building. So I do find it interesting that Poland have gone down the route of taking a vehicle skew for Grey Knights. America haven't taken Grey Knights. England, another one of the favourites, have taken that weird list. Australia, one of the favourites. Well, they've got a lot of new players, I think, this year. They have taken vehicle skew. So yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? I mean, I've played this style list. It was not for me at all. I'm not good with this style list, so I'm always going to be slightly against this build. But if you are looking to smash face with vehicles and Dread Knights, then I think this is probably a very good place to start. So we've got Stern, as I mentioned earlier. He's an action monkey. Hopefully, getting up on 2-up, get 2 uses out of him. Very tasty. Then got 3 Grandmasters in Dread Knight armor and 3 normal Nemesis Dread Knights. Just purely because of points, I assume. 1 Grandmaster has First to the Fray. And 1 has the Liber Demonica. The Demonica is an interesting one. I have seen it crop up a couple of times. In terms of points, you either take the Demonica, which is +1 damage against demons, and something else which I've now completely forgotten. I apologise. I even wrote a comment about it recently. Sorry. And First to Fray is obviously +1 to charge. No, that's Inescapable Wrath. First to Fray, I don't know. Reroll charges, maybe, I don't know. In terms of the Demonica, no, First to Fray has come down turn 1, right? I don't know. Cut for the edit.
A few moments later.
And we're back. Sorry about that. Just been a long weekend. So First to Fray is obviously you can come down first turn, okay? Which I think is very interesting. Creates potential issues for your opponent. Bit scary, isn't it, when your opponent tells you I can come down first turn. And the Demonica is for that model +1 to wound, because obviously those strength 14 hammers need the +1 to wound. Hey, it means you've got a better chance of getting through vehicles, right? Which you're already re-rolling against, probably. Anyway, so yeah. So now stop commenting. Don't stop telling me I'm wrong. I've looked it up, okay? But yeah, so you've got that. Then they've got the Sigil and the Librarian, who'll be with the 5 Terminators, I assume. And then you've got 5 Strikes, 5 Interceptors for your mission play, and 3 Nemesis Dread Knights. It's a killy list, a really killy list, as long as you roll averagely. If you roll below averagely, you're screwed. He's got no Tech Marines, which I'm surprised at, with 6 Dread Knights, no Tech Marines who can be buffing and doing mission stuff. As I've said to you before, there are 5 missions with actions. And this loses the 5 Strikes and 5 Interceptors quite quickly, and it's having to get rid of those action cards. So I don't think it scores well. It just relies on killing, and if the dice betray them, then I mean it's risky, right? It's risky. It's why I don't like this sort of list. But hey, Poland are defending champions, and obviously it'll be a very good player on them. And if they pair correctly, I'm sure. It's still scary, right? No one wants to turn up to the table and have to try and deal with 6 Dread Knights. It's a bit of a pain in the ass. And finally, the final list I want to talk about is like one of the most left field out there. Like, I mean, I spoke about the Italians list. I mean, I don't understand the Italians list, so therefore I can't comment on it. But this is an absolute blast from the past, and I absolutely love it. So, Ireland, I have more OC than you. They've got Brother Captain Stern. They've got 2 Librarians, one of which has Sigil, one of which has Inescapable Wrath, which is the +1 to charge, and a double bracket, apparently. They've got Drago. 2 units of 5 strikes, as I said. I think that's the magic number. And then, boom, 3 lots of 10 Terminators. Mwah. Oh, beautiful. So, that's quite a lot of OC, isn't it? Just to go and sit on a point. I think if you're good with this sort of list, it's really, really powerful because it denies quite a lot of the cards. And it's obviously very good at primary. You have to wield it like a fine knife. It's not a sledgehammer that you think it would be. I know people have spoken about 3 10s. I kind of personally prefer 2 10s, but it's a massive skew. And I think if Sam Nash is good with it, the guy running the list, and I've met Sam, and he's a good player. I didn't know he played Grey Knights. But yeah, I think this is a really interesting list. I'd love to try it. I'd have to try it on like TTS or something. Because I feel like playing a whole weekend with this could be a bit upsetting if you kept running into bad matchups. Because you just don't have much stuff, do you? It's like, oh, great, I've drawn containment and recover assets. I've got 5 actions to do. Oh, that's my entire army. So, yeah, you have to be very good with this. But again, this is a massive points scoring list in terms of it's going to close that gap. It's going to say no differential for you, but he has to dodge certain matchups. But yeah, I think it'll be very interesting to see how Sam does. This is obviously very similar to Jack Harpster's list from last year, where he just kept drawing with the broken Eldar at the time. So yeah, again, maybe don't take this to a GT. Maybe take it to like an RTT or try on TTS or something, and let me know if you've played it. Let me know what you think, really. I played this list once, many moons ago, and it was really fun for 3 turns as my Ital opponent got very annoyed that he couldn't shoot anything. And then eventually I just had to start trying to make 9-inch charges, and I think I lost 2 bricks in 1 turn to shooting, and I was like, okay, maybe this isn't for me. But yeah. So there you go, guys. I just wanted to talk you through those sorts of lists. I hope you found that interesting. If you're new to Grey Knights or more experienced with Grey Knights, you can always take something from these lists. As I said, don't just blindly copy them. It doesn't achieve anything. But I think there were some very good examples of lists there. And I mean, I have one of my other teammates, Ed Watts, like he's an exceptional 40k player. He loves Grey Knights. We talk about Grey Knights a lot. And with my list building, I've spent a lot of time talking about it. And we always it boils down to the same point. Play what works for you. There are so many different ways you can play Grey Knights at the moment and play them effectively. Like my current proper list is so fine-tuned after playing lots and lots of times and working out what works for me. I'm a brother captain kind of guy. There's not a single brother captain at the WTC. There are a few grandmasters, but I tried him and he wasn't for me. Right? I even have room for him in my next list, but he's still not there. I'm still taking the brother captain instead. But yeah, I think this is also a really interesting time to be trying out different lists. So yeah, get out there, get practicing. Let me know in the comments what's working for you and why. Yeah, what about it has done well. I think that's really important. But yeah, thank you for sticking to the end. As always, if you could like the video, leave a comment. That helps us on the old algorithm. Discord is, God, people are joining constantly on our Discord. We're probably up to like 430 members now. Lots of chat going on all the time. I'm not sure what to do for my next video though. I mean, I will do a video looking at the WTC, but that's not for a couple of weeks. So I'd like to get out something in the meantime. I'm tempted to do like kind of like a beginner tactics, like maybe like a bit of a playbook, get the camera on the table and just, or maybe on TTS if it's easier, and just like show off some moves that I kind of have in my head of what I'm trying to achieve. I don't know, like what would you like to see? Let me know if there's anything. Otherwise, if I can't think of anything, then yeah, I'll be back to let you know how the Grey Knight list did and which ones were the successful ones, or what were like that. Again, something to bear in mind of lists, looking at lists and go, oh, this list got 520 O's. This must be a really great list. Maybe it just got really good pairings the whole time. And this other list, which got a bunch of 8s, actually was up against it the whole time and was a much better list. Okay, so something to bear in mind. But yeah, we're covering all the WTC stuff on our channel. We've got loads of England stuff. We've got some Wales stuff. We've got loads of Luxembourg stuff. We've got people doing individual analysis. We've got a couple of podcast episodes out on it. So yeah, all of the good stuff. So yeah, as always, it's been an absolute pleasure, and I will see you again very soon. Bye-bye.